The Atari 2600 defies classic retro video gaming, and rightfully so. I mean, look at this thing. You can't go back any farther than this. Okay, technically you can. The Atari 2600 was released in 1977, advertised as a home video game console. It was technically called the Atari 2600 Video Computer System, or VCS for short. Originally, it had 6 switches. I don't have it, I just have the 4 switch model. Later, the Atari 2600 was released with lighter components, and sometimes an all-black finish, nicknamed the Darth Vader model. Sears rebranded the Atari for their own game, called it the Atari Video Arcade. There was also a budget version of the Atari, named the Atari 2600 Junior, unofficially, several years later. The Atari 2600's joystick is what's been assumed to be the first video game controller. Though it technically isn't, it's what started the evolution on the way games were played. What I love about this controller is that it was just so easy to use and understand. Alright, how do I play? There's just one button. What is it that you don't understand? The fact that this controller was simple in the way it was understood by anyone and everyone. The thing was, these controls give off weird feels, mainly the size of the controller overall. Those left-handed will have a much harder time to adjust and grip to the base of the controller. There were complaints back then that the corners of the controllers really digged into the palms, but I don't feel it. I never had a problem. Maybe after long play sessions it got a little awkward, but I can't find any way that this would actually harm the player. This is a similar case with the NES controller. I just can't see it. So instead of rebranding the Atari controller, Atari made new controllers for specific games, like the keypad or the paddles. I like how there are 2 controllers attached to the controller, but oh my god, is it pesky with all these wires. This is a video game. Awesome. Nothing better than sitting on the couch trying to play with the controller. It's just a joystick and a red button. Before you even play, you're trying to figure out how to even hold the controller in a proper fashion. Controllers with grippable thighs usually have the same holding style pattern. Atari, not so much. Now it's time to introduce one of the Atari's competitors at the time. Created by Mattel Electronics in 1979 as a test market run before being worldwide nearly a year later, the Intellivision. The Intelligent Television. It was advertised as the console for the more advanced players, more complicated controls, more realistic sports games. Those were the games Mattel was known for. Selling about 3 million units during its lifetime, it did a lot in what little time it had. There was a second and third model, with the fourth model being cancelled due to the video game crash, but the first model is what people mainly think of when it comes to the Intellivision. This controller was questionable in its design, with a numeric keypad, 4 shoulder buttons, if you can call them that, and a circle directional pad. This controller definitely raises some eyebrows. Look at this. Do you even call this a controller? Would you even consider it to be a controller? To be fair, it was very innovative and advanced for its time, maybe even too advanced. This controller shaped gaming. On the first model, the 2 controllers that came with were built in, and for being built in, it does bring up the issue that once a controller breaks, it takes some technical knowledge to replace it. At least on the Model 2, the controllers were detachable. The Atari 2600 was known for how simple it was to play and understand how to play. The Intellivision took a different route. For the Intellivision, you have to thoroughly read through the manual to even have a clue on how to play. There are exceptions, but for sports games, there's definitely a hurdle to overcome. If you notice on the controller, there is a small gap at the top of the number pad. In come the overlays. You put these over the number pad to have visual instructions on how to play the game you'd want to. It was a nice collecting habit, I really liked it. There were many games released for both systems. Let's compare them. Astro Blast. It's literally the same thing, like even the game cartridge looks alike. Donkey Kong. Is there something I don't understand? With this arcade hit, the Atari had this stage. Oh yeah, that's Mario alright. The Intellivision, though it had a better jump mechanic, there was less detail in Mario. which doesn't really seem like a Mario, more so like a Jumpman, and Donkey Kong had an animation but had a green texture to it. Football. With the Intellivision's controller, it was somewhat easy to play football with all these buttons and all, and the overlay definitely helped. But with the Atari, there was just no room for any control here. I mean, you just have one button. What else could you do? Pitfall, one of the best games made at the time. Same controls, jump, move, get off vines. But which controller would you rather play on? That all considered, why did the Atari sell better than others? Why was it more preferred? Well, to put simply, the Atari had better games, arcade quality ports, plus it was decently priced. The Intellivision was $300 at launch. That's definitely going to put a dent in your pocket, even in today's money if it was released now. But which console was better? Well, the Intellivision was built better and functioned better. It was really advanced. It was an all-around better console. And for its time, this is what really fired at Atari in advertisements. Famous lines include, "Which is closer to the real thing?" and "Once you play, you'll know the difference." And it was true, the Intellivision was the better console. That said, the Atari 2600 really skyrocketed in sales. The Atari 2600 relied on games that were on the platform, and that did it for Atari. They had the major lead on the video game industry, and 30 million units compared to 3 million units is enough said what the public likes better. They just had the best games. Which consoles did you think was better and why? And if this is your first time seeing them, which one would you rather have? It's the podcast, fam. See you next time.